So a virtual outpatient or a virtual like process group or a virtual AA meeting versus an in-person, the virtual, you lose out on accountability, you lose out on connectivity. Like, I'm not like socializing, if I were in a in-person AA meeting or an in-person process group or in-person outpatient, we're like hanging out, like joking with each other, and we're kind of like playing off on each other. We're all laughing together afterwards. We're like hanging out, we're like by the smoke break together. We're connecting, we're building, we're bonding, just like in that video, right? That everything you know about addiction is wrong video. And you will lose that in the virtual space. There's this thing that we'll say in recovery, which is the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting is more important than the meeting. And they don't mean like your next meeting or like yesterday's meeting. They literally mean if you come like a half an hour early and just kind of hang, and you're like helping them make coffee and you're like talking to people, your chances of long-term sobriety go through the roof. It is, if I could wish for one thing for anybody, right? And I don't care if it's A or NA or recovery Dharma or Buddhist or celebrate recovery, you show up a half an hour early and you engage. Don't Not phone staring, right? Which I'm guilty of, right? You engage and you connect and you hang and you talk, and then you hang for the meeting and you raise your hand and you talk during the meeting and you let people get to know you, and your opinion matters, like who you are matters. And then you hang after the meeting, and if you did that for 90 days, your chances of long-term recovery go through the roof. And so in a virtual setting, you can't really do that. Like, what do we have to do? Show up for a half an hour like at a blank screen, and like I can't talk to each other. It literally is 30 little faces, and we talk one at a time, but there is no interconnectedness. It literally is one person talking and then one person, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, and support groups can do that as well, but there's an energy. There's also an accountability. And so I just wanted to make this kind of, this video to help people to understand that virtual, in my experience, if you're not the super motivated all in person, if you don't have a high recovery responsibility, you're not like calling and talking to people, like you're not like, oh, I'm willing to go to any lengths. If you're already resistant to recovery and you're already pushing back on residential and you're pushing back on IOP and you're doing like your one wimpy virtual meeting, it probably has about 10% of the effectiveness as going in face to face. That's my personal statistic. Through observation, I've worked with thousands of family members and thousands of addicts, and I've been around for a bit. And I'm just going to say it's 10% as effective. And you're talking to somebody who attends virtual. I attend virtual and face to face, so I'm not criticizing virtual. I'm just saying that get grounded. Do both. Get grounded in your consistent social rhythms and your pillars. I always say, if I walk into the NA meeting, AA meeting, recovery Dharma, whatever, and you can't introduce me to 80% of the people in the room, then you're not in. You're not in the community of recovery. You're just kind of like showing up. You're watching, you're basically the equivalent of watching YouTube. And I like YouTube. And I'm sure there are people that are sober as a result of YouTube. And, but for many of us, right, if it were that simple, we wouldn't need all these other recovery things. So virtual versus in person, my personal opinion, if you're in your first 6 months of sobriety, recovery, whatever it is, I strongly recommend at least daily in-person meetings for a while, for a few months, and then you can kind of tiptoe down a little bit, and then sprinkle some virtuals as well.